I don't think of procrastination as a negative thing. I see it as I don't have a complete map on how to get to where I'm going, and I may not even have like a full destination and know what it looks like. I just know where I am right now. I'm not happy and I want to do something different, and I don't have the skills or the tools to get there. So, procrastination for me, I know people talk about being self sabotaging and things like that, but for me, it's because I don't have the confidence and I don't have the clarity. And so procrastination for me is usually resting on the couch and feeling uncertain and feeling like a lack of confidence in like not only the direction that I want to go in, but like how I'm going to get there. And another reason why you may be struggling to also get up into action is because you've taken on some sort of there's like a belief system that needs to be revised because you're feeling heavy about something. And sometimes it can be a fear of doing what you want to do because you've had an experience before where you stepped up and someone tried to chop you down. And so like you remember when I tried to do this last time, I was discouraged, I was mocked, I failed. But for me, I had to keep trying, and it wasn't really from other people like trying to knock me down. It got to the point where I had to realize, do I even want to do this? Do I want to do it like this? Or do I even want to put this, like I was still doing too much and for the wrong reasons. And it felt like, I had to really get to a point where I wasn't getting support, like exterior support from like, subscribers and likes and comments as much as I'd hoped. And so I had to realize, like, do I like what I'm doing? And do I like it enough to continue doing this for a long period of time? Because there's some things I recognize, like they're hobbies, but I don't want to do it every day. So like I do tarot readings, but I don't use tarot cards, but I use oracle cards. And I realized, you know what, this kind of gets boring for me, and I enjoy it, but it's more of a hobby, not something that I want to be making content every day about. And so I had to really revise also the community that kind of kept me in. There was a lot of delusion and misbeliefs that I don't rock with. So it also kind of put me into a group that I really didn't feel like it was me and represented me. And so that's where I pulled away from the tarot cards and the oracle cards and things like that. And I had to focus on where I am right now and who I am, and create from my space. And that's what I'm passionate about, because in my era of growing, I've learned so much about what is not for me and what works better for me. And I've recognized a lot of misbeliefs in the religion and in the spirituality and just in life in general about people that are going to try to like pour their fear onto you because they're not doing it, but you are. And so I also had to look at like the advice I was getting from these people, and I looked at their lifestyle. So it's like, having a doctor trying to tell you how to be healthy, meanwhile he's extremely overweight and he's got a huge ego, and now I'm supposed to accept his medical advice. It doesn't it's probably not someone, it's going to be a season, not a settling, right? That's not somewhere I want to stay. If I'm having conflict with my doctor and he can't understand and listen to what I'm telling him, and still is doubling down in his decision even after you have evidence like this is not the situation, that's someone who's closed off. So like, yes, he's a doctor, but no, he's not confident as a doctor, right? So I had to look at people who had titles who were not fulfilling those roles. And it was hard for me because I was putting people up on pedestals. And when I started to like really look at them and allow myself to see the truth of them, it really allowed me to see my truth and where I was actually more capable than I knew. And then I also had to look back at like, why do I feel so low about myself? And then I had to look at my childhood and realize my father did not raise a confident daughter. And so like he is not confident in himself. But if you talk to him about certain things, he seems very confident. But if you look at his lifestyle, it's insecure, and it's not stable. And so I had to start looking at my belief systems, what I was raised in to believe in as a child, which is I started off in religion, and then as I think it was in my 30s-ish, I met up with spirituality after I'd moved away from my family somewhat. And I thought, wow, this is a real winning group. I can really be a part of this. And I started recognizing like there's a lot of misbeliefs in spirituality too. And while I think as humans, we need sort of that safety net of believing there's something out there watching out for us, but that can be helpful at one moment and hindering at the other if we're relying on some unknown factor to catch us when we keep going back either into past patterns or for refusing to see the writing on the wall. And so there are times where I just kept hitting rock bottom after, wave after wave of wave. And it's like, okay, wake up. You're giving out of guilt. You don't see yourself as tall as you are. You're not giving yourself enough credit. You've done so much work and yet you receive so little. So like I had to start recognizing not just my patterns, but patterns from other people and how they thought it was okay to treat me. But then I also had to look, how am I showing up in these rooms? And so a lot of these experiences kept me in my head and in my body in the way of like on the couch, not in action. And so the more I got hands-on experience, instead of listening to other people's advice through their Bibles, their books, their experiences, quotations, their experiences, because like when you listen to some of this talk in some of these communities, it starts to sound off. When you say it out loud, it sounds wonderful in theory, but it's kind of like watching a movie and expecting you to experience life like that movie, because they don't go to the bathroom in movies usually unless it's part of the big storyline, and they don't show them eating. When you watch like say Jason Bourne or something like that, they're showing like elements, but not every sort of sit down dinner that he's having. They're not showing every scene of the life because it wouldn't make sense. Like it wouldn't come together because it's a movie. So I had to look at these ideas from the religious community, from the spiritual community, just from people in my life that worked hard and got nowhere. I had to really look at like where were their beliefs at and what were they not believing in. And out of all of that is like they didn't believe in themselves. They didn't trust themselves. And so they needed to pull on all these things. But unfortunately, by pulling on these false belief systems, it really left them where they were. And it's what happens is it's still part of a blame game, and I think some people get mad because something's not happening and then they end up blaming God. But like they're not understanding like how I believe the God system works is like you're meant to put yourself out there. This is your life to live. And so there are times where you think you're waiting on someone to come save you or to get some sort of sign, and that is the sign. Get up and go. Nobody's coming to save you. And so I had to recognize, like, if I want something to happen, there are times where I'm just like, you know what, this is not happening. And if I would have kept engaging in like energy work and affirmations and, even listening to music at the wrong time before you recognize the pain that you're feeling, if you bring in that music too soon, if you bring in that dessert too soon and you numb out the pain and you bypass the pain, you're back to the start. And so that pain is actually a message that you listen to. That emotion that you're feeling is something that you listen to. It's like a mapping of like where you're at and what you're doing and why. And so if you keep feeling depressed and you got yourself out of it before, but now you're back in it, that to me it says you're still not authentic to your heart. You're not doing something that you love, and you're still doing too much for other people and not enough for you. And it's not easy. That's why people don't do it, because it's kind of like a pioneered path. It's based on you and your needs and what you want for your life and how you think you can or can't make money. If you look at the way people are making money, they're making it in some pretty odd ways. And so to think that whatever your idea isn't going to work, I mean, you're the one who has to roll it out and back it. And so if you can't even back your idea, who else is going to? So I had to learn how to be my main support. I couldn't rely on other people to support me because the people I was surrounded by didn't want me to win unless I was going to give it to them. And so when they started noticing I was pulling away from them, that's when they wanted to pull me back in. And that's where they wanted to finish the job, as to like, we can't let her have hope because this one has hope and action, and so she knows how to create change. And these people don't want change unless they're the forefront, they're at the top, they're getting all the credit, and they want that supply. So I had to recognize I was in a room of vampires who really wanted supply and attention, but didn't know how to show me time or attention. And so like I was good enough to sit on the shelf and wait for their next interaction and phone call and text, but what they didn't know is in those in-between times, I was resting, I was recovering, and I was rebuilding. And so when you give this gift to yourself, the time to rest and invest in yourself, instead of like running off to Amazon or running off to, get ice cream and chocolate or running into the next situationship, when you stop and you build patience and settle within yourself instead of other people that you're grabbing onto out of desperation and you know, the need for a quick answer. When you go inside, you're going to find those answers, and they're going to be for you and not for somebody else. And that's going to be a painful truth. Recognizing what I actually received in childhood compared to how, as a child, I perceived and diluted what my childhood looked like. As an adult now, I allowed myself to see the clear, true colors of the family dynamic that I grew up in, and it's not happy, and it's not all full of rainbows and My Little Ponies. It's actually full of a lot of neglect, cruelty, isolation, and lack mindset, but in a way that it's one-sided. There was not lack in all areas of the household. It came from one person, and he liked to spread that amongst everyone, while it made him feel big and us feel small. So I learned to recognize that in my current day life, where I'm, you know, having people that show up for the wrong reasons, and I just have to keep pushing it for me. And it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's really worth it. It's the long game, and a lot of people want that quick, fast action, to get that quick fix, and that quick reward. And that's not what I found has been beneficial. But in the meantime, what I am noticing is, while I take my time, I'm two birds, one stoning it. There's some things where I learn a lesson here, and I can apply it all across the board. So while you look at this path and it looks hard and daunting to do it by yourself, what happens is, when you build your strength, you also build your confidence, and now you build the resilience to push past your fears, and now you give yourself the time to feel those emotions and to express those emotions, wherein before you're just required to sit like a pretty little doll, acting like these breadcrumbs were like a deli sandwich with a lasagna and a milkshake. And meanwhile, it wasn't anything good for you. It was stale breadcrumbs. And that cage that you were in, that they want to convince you was your home, was actually just a prison. And so when you learn how to free yourself and free your mind, you free your body and you free the action. And so a lot of this also, I feel like, has to do with, like, if you're trying to lose weight, it's really challenging to lose weight when you have so much on your plate in life in general. And it really is by design, because the more things that you feel you have to do because you don't feel enough, that's taking up your time, attention, and energy. And a lot of these things are not just like other people's responsibilities, but it's the belief systems that you've taken on that says, I have to show up like this to be accepted and loved, where these people are just conditionally loving of you. So, like, while you're bypassing your boundaries, and you're like giving to other people who are very capable of giving to themselves, they still decide to take from you. That's not good energy. That's gross energy. And so you have to allow yourself to see this in other people. And if you're not willing to acknowledge the truth in other people, you're still going to be withholding some truth from yourself. And so when you make excuses for other people, you make excuses for yourself. So while I had to recognize the ugly behavior of these people, I had to ask myself, why do I feel like I have to tolerate that? What makes me drawn to people like that? And so that's when I had to go in and give myself what I didn't receive in childhood, was nurturing, compassion, care, time, and patience, and a friendly face when I was struggling so hard. And I had to keep showing up for me, to support me, and to keep me pushing, because nobody else was there to do it. The only people around me at the time were ones who wanted to push me down instead of raise me up, and those were the closest ones to me. So that is a sad story, but it doesn't have to be your sad ending. You can keep going, and you can keep growing. I'm gonna do it, and you can too. Just continue showing up for yourself. I'm here for your support. You can watch me on Facebook as well if you'd like some different types of messages there. I will be doing more content to try to put this into more detail. And so, yeah, I hope you show up for yourself, because no one else will, and you definitely deserve it. Take care.